So I'm still shaking as I type this. Like, my hands literally won't stop trembling, and I've already had to delete and rewrite this intro 3 times. You know how sometimes you think you know someone completely, and then one random moment just shatters everything? Yeah, welcome to my weekend. Let me back up. I'm Olivia, 29, work in tech marketing, and until about 6 hours ago, I was engaged to Matthew, 32, a lawyer at one of those prestigious Manhattan firms where they basically sell their souls for a chance at partnership. We've been together for 3 years, and honestly, everything seemed perfect. He's charming, successful, comes from a good family, whatever that means, and my parents absolutely adored him. Classic power couple stuff, you know? Last night was our engagement party at the Pierre. Yeah, fancy, I know. His idea, not mine. My parents went all out because they were so excited about this marriage. We're talking custom cocktails, 5-course dinner, string quartet, the works. My mom practically floated around the room introducing Matthew as my future son-in-law who's on track to make partner. Eye roll. Anyway, about halfway through the night, I went looking for Matthew to take some photos with my college friends, who had just arrived. I couldn't find him in the main ballroom, so I checked the adjacent lounge area. The door was slightly ajar, and I heard male laughter. Before I could push it open, I heard Matthew's voice, crystal clear. Guys, come on. You know the deal. She's just a stepping stone until I make partner, then I'll find someone better. Her family's connections are too valuable to walk away from right now. One of his friends said something like, "But you proposed, man. That's cold." And Matthew laughed, actually laughed, and said, "Small price to pay." Harrison, the managing partner, is all about family values. He'll fast-track me once we're married. By this time next year, I'll have the partnership and can figure out an exit strategy. Maybe I'll discover she can't have kids or something. I froze. Like, literally couldn't move. My brain just short-circuited. In that moment, I had this out-of-body experience where I saw myself burst through the door, throw my ring at him, and cause a scene that would have ended up on someone's Instagram story within minutes. But something stopped me. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was pride, or maybe, and this is what I've been thinking about all night, maybe it was the sudden realization that I could play this game better than him. So I backed away quietly, took a few deep breaths in the eye, ladies' room, fixed my makeup, thank God for waterproof mascara, and went back to being the perfect beaming fiancé for the rest of the night. Matthew had no idea I'd heard him. He kept introducing me to his colleagues, his hand possessively on my lower back, talking about our future together, with that practiced sincerity that I now realized had always been just that, practiced. I've spent the last 24 hours in a weird state of calm fury, if that makes sense. Like, I'm devastated, obviously, but mostly I'm angry. Not just at being betrayed, but at being underestimated. Matthew thinks I'm just arm candy with useful parents. He has no idea who he's dealing with. Here's where you guys come in. I'm not confronting him, at least not yet. I've decided to play the long game. Matthew said he'd have his partnership by this time next year. Partner announcements at his firm happen every October. That gives me exactly 10 months. I know his firm inside and out at this point. I know which clients are shaky, which partners have influence, and most importantly, I know all the dirt Matthew has shared about internal politics over pillow talk. I'm also pretty tight with Harrison's wife from charity committees, and she loves to gossip after a few glasses of Chardonnay. My plan? I'm going to be the most supportive, perfect fiancé on the planet while systematically ensuring he never makes partner. Then, when he's at his lowest point professionally, I'll let him know exactly why his stepping stone walked away. Is this petty? Absolutely. Is it a waste of my time? Maybe. But something in me just can't let him win after this. I've already started a notes app of ideas, but I'd love to hear your suggestions too. So buckle up, Reddit. This revenge story is going to take a while to unfold, but I promise to keep you updated every step of the way. Updated. Wow, I didn't expect my last post to blow up like that. Thanks for all the support and suggestions. Some of you thought I should just walk away with my dignity intact, and believe me, I considered it. But when you've spent 3 years building a life with someone who sees you as nothing more than a career accessory, well, let's just say dignity feels overrated compared to justice. So, it's been about 3 months since my last update, and Operation Stepping Stone, yes, I named it, don't judge me, is in full swing. Here's what's gone down. First, I had to establish myself as the perfect, unsuspecting fiancé. I've been planning our wedding with nauseating enthusiasm. Pinterest boards, venue tours, the works. Matthew seems relieved that I'm so distracted by wedding plans that I'm not paying attention to his work life. If he only knew, lol. About a month ago, I started phase 1 of my plan. Information gathering. Matthew's firm is handling a pretty controversial class action suit against HealthPoint Pharmaceuticals. Nothing illegal, but definitely some ethically questionable tactics involved. Matthew is second chair on the case and has been bringing work home regularly. And guess who helpfully organizes his home office when he's at work? This girl. I've documented everything: billing discrepancies, evidence that might have been overlooked, notes about witness coaching. Nothing I'd actually use publicly. I'm not trying to get disbarred by association, but definitely stuff that would make the partners nervous if they knew someone outside the firm had access to it. Then, there's the social angle. I've become besties with Catherine, Harrison's wife. We do SoulCycle together twice a week, and let me tell you, that woman talks more than a podcast on 2x speed. Through her, I've learned that Harrison is actually on thin ice with the other partners. Apparently, the last 2 associates he championed for partnership were disasters. One left for a competitor and took clients with him, and the other had some kind of breakdown and is on extended leave. Harrison needs his next pick to be perfect, or his own position could be in jeopardy. This is crucial info because Matthew is counting on Harrison's sponsorship. If Harrison doubts him even slightly, the other partners will smell blood in the water. Now for the subtle sabotage part. I've started casually mentioning to Catherine how worried I am about Matthew's work life balance, how he seems so stressed and perhaps not ready for more responsibility. I've even fake confided in her about my concerns that he might be developing a drinking problem to cope with the pressure. He's not. The man can barely finish a glass of Cabernet without getting sleepy, but Catherine doesn't know that. Meanwhile, I've been accidentally scheduling important dinner parties with potential clients on nights when Matthew has deadlines. Last week, I invited the Goldmans over, major potential clients that Harrison has been trying to land for months, and forgot that Matthew had a filing due. He had to choose between impressing the clients or finishing his work and ended up doing both poorly. Harrison was not happy. I've also been planting seeds of doubt with Matthew about his colleagues. Little comments like, "That's strange, I thought Jason said you were third chair on the Brooks case, not second," or, "Huh, Amanda," made it sound like your contribution to the Johnson brief was more administrative. Nothing direct, just enough to make him paranoid and second-guess his relationships at work. The beauty of all this is that Matthew has been so focused on impressing the partners that he hasn't noticed these subtle, undermining tactics. In fact, he's been leaning on me more than ever, seeing me as his support system while I'm actually the one sabotaging him. Now, some of you might be thinking this sounds a little psycho. Fair enough, but I'm not doing anything illegal or even directly harmful to his career. I'm just making sure he doesn't get the partnership he's using me to achieve. The way I see it, if he were actually good enough for partnership on his own, merits my little nudges wouldn't matter. There was one scary moment last month when he came home unexpected while I was going through his work laptop. I managed to play it off like I was ordering a surprise for him online, but it was close. I've been more careful since then. The trickiest part has been maintaining our relationship while secretly despising him. Every kiss feels like a betrayal. Not of him, but of myself. Every time he talks about our future, I have to resist the urge to laugh in his face. But weirdly, this experience has taught me how strong I actually am. I never thought I could be this calculating or patient. Oh, and remember how Matthew mentioned possibly claiming I can't have kids as an exit strategy? I've started dropping hints to his mother, who desperately wants grandchildren, about how excited I am to start trying right after the wedding. The look of panic on his face was priceless. The partnership decision is still 7 months away, but I can already see cracks forming in Matthew's confident facade. He came home fuming last week because Harrison assigned a major client to another associate. When I asked why, Matthew snapped that Harrison had concerns about his commitment level. Mission accomplished. Next phase involves getting closer to the other partners' spouses. There's a charity gala next month where all the firm's bigwigs will be present, and I volunteered to help organize it. Perfect opportunity to spread more subtle concerns about Matthew's readiness for partnership. I know this is a long game, and honestly, sometimes I question whether it's worth it. There are nights when I lie awake next to him, wondering if I should just end things now and move on with my life. But then I remember the callous way he laughed with his friends, how easily he dismissed our relationship as a stepping stone, and my resolve hardens again. So that's where things stand now. My gorgeous engagement ring feels like it's burning a hole in my finger every day, but October is coming. And revenge, like the best Manhattans at the Pierre, is best served cold. I'll update again when there's more to share. Until then, keep your friends close and your manipulative fiancés closer. Updated. Hey Reddit, it's been a while and wow, do I have updates for you? The last 4 months have been absolutely wild, and everything is coming to a head exactly as planned. Grab your popcorn because this is about to get interesting. After my last update, I really doubled down on becoming the firm's favorite almost spouse. I volunteered for the charity committee at Matthew's law firm. Yes, they let partners, spouses, and fiancés join, very old school. And I've been showing up at every happy hour and firm event looking supportive and completely clueless. The Fictional. Partners' wives have basically adopted me at this point. If they only knew, right? Remember Catherine, Harrison's wife? Well, she and I are practically besties now. We've graduated from SoulCycle to weekly brunches at Siddell's, where, after her second mimosa, she spills all the tea about the firm's internal politics. Through her, I learned that the partnership committee had already started their preliminary discussions, and Matthew's name was definitely on the list, but there were concerns. Apparently, some of those little seeds I planted about his work life, balance struggles, and difficulty handling pressure had taken root. Catherine mentioned that Harrison had been defending Matthew to the other partners but wasn't getting much traction. Music to my ears, obviously, but I couldn't just rely on gossip and subtle undermining. I needed something concrete that would tank his chances without looking like I had anything to do with it. That's when an opportunity literally landed in my lap. At about 2 months ago, Matthew asked me to help him organize some files for the Health Point case. He was in a rush to meet the guys for golf, with some senior partners, of course, and needed the files sorted for a Monday morning meeting. While going through them, I found something interesting. Emails showing that Matthew and another associate had been inflating their billable hours on multiple cases, including Health Point. Now I know what you're thinking. All lawyers pad their hours a little, right? But this was next level. They were billing clients for work that was never done and strategy meetings that never happened. I made copies of everything and tucked them away in my nuclear option folder. I didn't want to use this information right away. I needed to wait for the perfect moment, and I needed more than just the billing fraud. So I kept digging. Meanwhile, the wedding planning continued. We set a date for November, conveniently right after partnership announcements. My parents were throwing ridiculous amounts of money at this thing, and every time my mom showed me some absurdly expensive option for flowers or catering, I just smiled and agreed while mentally calculating how much of their deposit they'd lose when I eventually pulled the plug. The real turning point came about 6 weeks ago. Matthew's firm had their annual 4th of July party at the managing partner's house in the Hamptons. Very fancy, very exclusive. Matthew was stressed because he knew this was basically his final audition before partnership decisions. The committee would be watching how he interacted with clients, other partners, etc. I played my part perfectly. Charming, intelligent, but not threatening, the ideal corporate wife-to-be. I made sure to mention my family's connections to anyone who would listen, reinforcing just how valuable Matthew's relationship with me was to the firm. Then, when Matthew went inside to get drinks, one of the junior partner's wives, Stephanie, pulled me aside and said something that nearly made me drop my champagne. You know, she slurred slightly, clearly on mimosa number who knows what. I always wondered how you and Matthew got together. He always seemed so focused on, she made air quotes, blondes with connections. I played dumb. What do you mean? She looked around conspiratorially. Oh, honey, before you, Matthew had a reputation. The associates called him the climber. Always dating women who could help his career, then moving on when he'd squeezed out all the useful connections. She patted my arm. But clearly you're different. He actually proposed to you. It took everything in me not to laugh hysterically. Instead, I widened my eyes innocently and asked for more details. Turns out I wasn't the first stepping stone in Matthew's career path. There had been at least 3 others that Stephanie knew of, including the daughter of a former partner who was absolutely devastated when Matthew dumped her right after making senior associate. This was gold. I spent the next few weeks discreetly reaching out to these women, positioning it as wanting to connect with other people in the legal social circle. 2 of them agreed to meet me for coffee, and their stories were eerily similar to mine. One of them even heard him use the exact same stepping stone phrase. By this point, it was late August, and partnership decisions were happening in early October. Matthew was getting increasingly anxious, staying later at the office, checking his phone constantly. He'd snap at me over the smallest things, then apologize profusely, clearly worried about maintaining his perfect fiancé facade. Meanwhile, I was putting together my endgame. I compiled a dossier of sorts, the billing fraud evidence, testimonials from the ex-girlfriends, who were more than happy to help once I explained my situation, screenshots of some questionable social media posts Matthew thought he'd deleted years ago, and even recordings of some particularly damning conversations we'd had about his colleagues and clients. New York is a one-party consent state for recordings, I checked. 2 weeks ago, the moment I'd been waiting for arrived. Matthew came home jubilant, practically bouncing off the walls. He'd been told unofficially that the partnership committee had voted and the announcement would be made at the firm's annual dinner gala on October 15th. He was confident he'd made it. "Baby, we did it," he said, twirling me around our kitchen. "All our hard work is about to pay off." Our hard work. The audacity still makes my blood boil. That night, while he slept soundly beside me, I finalized my plan. The firm's gala was the perfect setting. All the partners, associates, and important clients would be there. Matthew would be expecting to celebrate his big achievement. Instead, he'd be getting the surprise of his life. I made an appointment with Harrison for the morning of the gala, claiming I wanted to discuss a surprise for Matthew's big night. Harrison agreed, probably thinking I wanted to give a toast or something equally nauseating. When I walked into his office, I was the picture of the devoted fiancé, right until I closed the door and placed my folder on his desk. Before tonight's announcements, I said calmly, there are some things about Matthew you should know. The meeting lasted almost 2 hours. Harrison's face went through every emotion: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally, a grim resignation. The billing fraud alone would have been enough to kill Matthew's partnership chances, but the pattern of using women as career stepping stones, including me, seemed to personally offend Harrison, who prided himself on being a family values guy. I appreciate you bringing this to me directly, Harrison said finally. Many women would have just gone public with this information. I gave him my most sincere look. I care about the firm's reputation, Harrison. Matthew's actions reflect not just on him, but on everyone who supported him. A little flattery never hurts. He promised to handle it discreetly and asked if I would still be attending the gala that evening. I assured him I wouldn't miss it for the world, which brings us to tonight. The gala was at Cipriani, all marble columns, and gilt everything. Matthew was practically glowing with anticipation as we mingled during the cocktail hour. I noticed Harrison watching us from across the room, his expression unreadable. When it was time for the announcements, we all took our seats. Matthew squeezed my hand hard enough to hurt as Harrison approached the podium. Before we announce our new partners, Harrison began, I want to talk about what we value at this firm: integrity, honesty, loyalty. Matthew's smile faltered slightly. This wasn't the usual introduction. Harrison continued, his gaze occasionally flicking to our table. Unfortunately, we recently discovered that one of our senior associates has fallen far short of these values. The partnership committee has unanimously decided to delay announcing new partners until a complete internal review can be conducted. The room erupted in murmurs. Matthew's face drained of color. What the hell? He whispered, pulling out his phone and frantically texting someone. I stood up. I need to use the restroom. In the ladies' room, I took out the engagement ring, a massive diamond that had always felt more like a shackle than a symbol of love, and placed it in an envelope along with a note that simply read, "Stepping stones can be slippery. Goodbye, Matthew." I left it with the coat check girl with instructions to give it to Matthew when he asked for our coats. Then I walked out of Cipriani, hailed a cab, and directed the driver to take me to the Standard Hotel, where I'd booked a room for the night. As we pulled away, I could see Matthew through the restaurant windows, being escorted to a side room by Harrison and 2 other partners. And that's where I am now, typing this final update from a hotel room with a view of the city that no longer feels like a prison of expectations and pretense. Tomorrow, I'll call my parents and explain everything. They'll be disappointed about the wedding, but they've always had my back. Then I'll head to my apartment, which thankfully is in my name only, and start the process of removing Matthew from my life. I won't lie and say I don't feel a twinge of sadness for the 3 years I invested in someone who saw me as nothing, more than a career strategy. But mostly I feel free and vindicated. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing someone's true nature to the world. It's making sure they face the consequences of their actions just as they're about to get everything they wanted. Matthew didn't just lose his partnership tonight. He likely lost his job, his reputation, and any chance of being taken seriously at another prestigious firm. And all because he underestimated the stepping stone he thought he could easily discard. Final update. Hey Reddit fam, it's been 6 months since my last update, and I promised some of you who DM'd me that I'd let you know how things shook out. Life has taken some wild turns, but for once, they're actually good ones. After the gala night, Matthew blew up my phone for weeks. First with angry messages, then pleading ones, and finally pathetic attempts to make me feel guilty. I blocked him on everything and had my doorman turn him away whenever he showed up at my building, which was embarrassingly often. The fallout at his firm was even bigger than I expected. Turns out, when they started digging into the billing fraud, they found it went deeper than just Matthew. 3 other associates were implicated, and 2 ended up resigning before they could be fired. Matthew wasn't so lucky. They made a very public example of him. Last I heard from mutual acquaintances, he's working at some tiny firm in New Jersey. How the mighty have fallen. As for me, those connections I made with the partners' wives weren't just for revenge purposes. Catherine introduced me to her brother, who runs a tech-focused marketing consultancy. We hit it off professionally, and I've been working there since January. The irony? One of our biggest clients is HealthPoint Pharmaceuticals. Yes, the same company Matthew's firm was representing. Sometimes the universe has a wicked sense of humor. My parents were surprisingly cool about the canceled wedding once I showed them evidence of Matthew's true character. Dad actually offered to have a conversation with him, which, knowing my father, probably meant something involving baseball bats, but I assured him that professional ruin was punishment enough. Dating again? Not yet. I'm enjoying rediscovering who I am without organizing my life around some guy's career aspirations. My apartment got a complete makeover. Goodbye law books and boring beige, hello color, and actually comfortable furniture. The last piece of the puzzle fell into place last month when, plot twist, Harrison's firm offered me a position heading up their client relations department. Apparently, my discretion and loyalty to the firm's reputation impressed them. I took great pleasure in turning them down. So that's it, Reddit. The 10-month plan worked even better than I'd hoped. I lost a lying fiancé, but gained self-respect, a better job, and the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, just sometimes, people actually get exactly what they deserve. To anyone out there dealing with a Matthew in your life, you're worth more than being someone's stepping stone. And stones can be pretty darn heavy when they fall on someone's foot or career.